G'day, I'm Don Burke. Behind me is a superb glacial mountain lake. And there are wonderful limestone cliffs beetling above us here. It really is a superb view. The plants around here, well, many of them are plants like rhododendrons and vacciniums, in other words, close relatives of the American blueberries. Where do you think we are? You would think perhaps Europe or somewhere like that, but in fact we're not. We're on top of Mount Sarawajit in Papua New Guinea. We're up at 11,000 feet. And this area actually at certain times of the year does have snow, and most mornings, even during the warm time, it has frost and so on. It's quite cold. Tonight's program is all about New Guinea. We will be going around much of the area looking at, of course, many of the tropical zones, the superb flowering plants. And our celebrity gardener is a chap who was actually born here in Papua New Guinea, and that's John Laws. But the show tonight will be about this superb, well, really undiscovered land, Papua New Guinea.
From this beautiful emerald island, let 1,000 conch shells resound, and the rhythmic beat of kundu drums from her children shall be heard once more. For the sun never sets in the southern sky, where 1,000 tribes have scattered, hold united the people of a diverse nation in a timeless, endless age. Like the biblical Tower of Babel, our languages, cultures, and traditions stood the test of immortal time, like the slow spinning wheels of fortune.
Here, we're 11,000 feet above sea level. That's certainly the highest elevation I've ever been to. And I suppose this is the exact sort of terrain that rhododendrons would love. In the two halves of New Guinea, as it was once called, there are something like 160 different species of rhododendron, which is an extraordinary thing. And many of those species have large numbers of forms. They flower in all sorts of colours. At this particular height and on this particular mountain, we've got this lovely red flowering species. It's only a small shrubby one, but many of these plants grow quite tall, in fact, to small trees. This, though, of course, is an alpine heathland, and it's not really soil. What we're on here is basically a type of peat moss, because the organic matter doesn't rot away very much due to the low temperatures. These tropical rhododendrons, if you like, they're being sold in Australia now as Vireo rhododendrons, come in many, many colours, not just red. Most of the rhododendrons that we found growing around the lake here on top of Mount Sarawajit were, of course, red, and some of them are reasonably large flowered. In fact, there's bigger ones than this, but there's also some lovely miniature ones. Just look at that, a superb miniature, in fact, relatively dwarf bush, too, of rhododendron. One of the curious facts is you might notice there's lichens growing on the trunk, and if you're wondering what the black is, yes, you do get bushfires through these areas after lightning strikes, because remember, there's clouds over here almost all the time. In fact, that brings up a fairly critical factor. We have to get out of here pretty soon, because the clouds will come over, and if they do, we're trapped here, and this is the sort of place you could die of exposure overnight. In the dense rainforests on top of these mountains in Papua New Guinea, obviously most of the life occurs in the trees. There are ferns and many, many other species of plants which live entirely anchored to the branches of these giant trees, and also the tropical rhododendrons. They too grow here in absolute profusion. Now, actually seeing them when you're walking around is quite difficult, because the odds are that the plants will be maybe 100 feet over your head. Often the only chance you get to see them is when a tree falls down, as has happened here, and a few plants remain clinging to the trunk. Now, this is another species of tropical rhododendron. This one is a sort of a pinkish colour. Very, very pretty plant. And down there you've got a Dendrobium orchid. This one is probably Dendrobium terrestri, but again, this country is, well, so unexplored, we're not sure of what many of the species are at this stage. But it certainly is absolutely packed with plants that will be very important in horticulture in the years ahead. The scenery in the mountains around Goroka in PNG is really superb. Rolling hills, magnificent villages which presumably are not much changed from how they looked a few thousand years ago. And here's this exquisite little orange-yellow tropical rhododendron. Now remember, we're up in the mountains, quite a few thousand feet in the air, and the climate here is much like it is in Sydney or Melbourne, so a plant like this has outstanding potential as a garden plant for Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, even Perth. Whilst those clouds over there on top of the mountains really do look quite superb, there's something far better over here. This is Mount Gahavasuka, and we've discovered this incredible white tropical rhododendron. And this one you can actually identify from quite a distance away because it's really beautifully perfumed. It's just a superb perfume. We don't know what the species is, and for all we know, this is a brand new species of tropical rhododendron. Now, we will be returning a little bit later on in the program to this area on top of Mount Gahavasuka to see the incredible birds of paradise, particularly the Princess Stephanie one. But for the moment, I'm just going to enjoy some more of these tropical rhododendrons, and this one in particular. Wish I knew what it was. Another curious plant from the Papua New Guinea area is this little epiphyte here. It's called an ant plant for one very simple reason. All right, cut him. Now look, if... That's pigeon, in case you're wondering. And the reason it's called an ant plant is that normally inside it, as you can see there, a huge colony of tiny little, in this case, reddish-brown ants. And the ants and the plant actually live together. One protects the other. Thanks. That's quite light and spongy. Well, that's it for Lae. After the break, we'll return, but we'll be in Rabaul.
When we asked you what you want...
These are New Guinea tree kangaroos. They actually do climb trees, and they're, well, not nimble, but certainly able to go straight up or down a trunk. And as you can see, they obviously quieten down quite nicely in captivity. This is a young spotted cuscus, which is probably the marsupial equivalent of the South American sloth. It's rather slow-moving, lives up in the branches, and, well, I suppose in a possum-like way, is a very cuddly little creature. There is a mature one just over there. As you can see, they're rather possum-like, very cute little creatures. This is Rabaul, which is by far one of the most fascinating and interesting parts of Papua New Guinea. Now, the whole area around the township and the harbour of Rabaul is actually a volcano. This area here where the water is the centre of the volcano, and the hills and so on around it form the rim. Now, that island over there is the island of Vulcan. Now, it wasn't there prior to 1878. It emerged as a low, flat island in 1878 during an eruption. Then in 1937, there was another eruption when The seas boiled, dead fish floated to the surface, and that island rose to its current height. That was 1937. Only a few years after that, though, things got decidedly worse when World War II impacted very, very heavily on this area. And in fact, the Japanese port was just over there.
Rabaul was a major strategic port in the Pacific region for the Imperial Japanese Army. Around 300,000 Japanese soldiers were stationed here. The Allies dropped over 20,000 tons of bombs on the Rabaul area. And in response, the Japanese went underground. This is the command headquarters for the Japanese Army in the centre of Rabaul. The normal chap that was running things here was Vice Admiral Junichi Kusuka, but in fact Admiral Yamamoto was also here when he was in the area. Elsewhere around Rabaul there are over 500 kilometres of extensive tunnels. Many of the tunnels remain almost exactly as the Japanese left them. Today they form wonderful treasure caves full of priceless war relics. In this particular one are 5 Imperial Japanese barges preserved for everyone to see. In the steamy tropical weather of Rabaul, steel doesn't last very well, and for that matter, these caves now are populated by swallows and bats and so on. Nature is starting to reclaim what was once its. Now, if you're wondering about this extraordinary achievement of over 500 kilometres of these sort of tunnels, the truth of the matter is that it's a very soft rock. It's a type of volcanic pumice. You can dig it away with your fingernails. And the Japanese actually brought in Indian labour to do all of this tunnelling. There's 2 barges here and a whole series more of them in a straight line going deep into the bowels of the mountain behind me.
In Papua New Guinea, meat is somewhat short these days. In the old days, of course, you just went out and caught whatever game was around, but with the advent of the rifle and so on, game is becoming very scarce. In fact, a pig in the highlands is worth around about 1,000 kina. Now that's, well, something like $1,500 Australian. That's a lot of money. Now, they are now looking for some new meat source, and under this grass here is the one that is to be, well, the great white hope. There's these little chaps here. The humble, there they go, the humble guinea pig that most of us in Australia would think is cute and cuddly, would keep as a pet, is being bred here for meat. And it's said that 2 guinea pigs, that is a boy and a girl, given their prodigious breeding rate, can feed a family of 6 for 1 year. Well, they've all got dinner, but just in case you haven't already, we're going to go to the Rabaul markets after the break and see what goodies are there. Don't they look delicious? They're good. That's good.
These are the Rebel markets, which are, I would think, the most fascinating markets I've ever been to in my life. Lots of stuff here that I know, and I'm sure that you and I have both eaten, but lots of things that, well, neither of us would know. I'll tell you what they are in a moment, but for the time being, I've got my local shopping bag, and I'm going to buy some goodies. How much are the mandarins?
30 for one.
30 for one. 30? Thank you very much. How much for the boiled peanuts?
20.
20. All right, thanks. How much are these?
10 for one.
10 for one fruit.
No, for one.
One pile, all right. Thank you very much. How do you get them in? Do I just grab them? Fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, I've got some very interesting bits and pieces. For a start now, I can't eat any of these, but that's the varieties of, if you like, local potato substitutes. Sweet potatoes, taro, and this one here, Santa Toma. But most of the rest of this I can have a bit of a lash at. Now, this, well, I suppose in a way it's like their packet of mixed nuts or whatever. These things are called gullip nuts. You just take off the outer coating, oops, and absolutely delicious, as good as any nut we'd ever eat in Australia. These strange looking things here, they're called rose apples. Now, of all things, these are related to, if you like, gum trees. They're in the lily-pilly family, a syzygium. Not bad. Probably makes superb jam, just like all of the lily-pilly family. These, well, many people in Australia would have eaten these. This is a rambutan. If you've never eaten one, it's reasonably similar to the lychee that you get down at the local Chinese restaurant. A superb fruit. Not an acquired taste at all. And then we get to some of the interesting ones. Obviously, they have a lot of local varieties of bananas, and many of them have seeds in them and so on. And one thing they sell at the markets here are these, which are basically steamed, or if you like, cooked bananas. Now, this particular one, honestly, it tastes like a potato. It doesn't taste like banana at all. Many of their bananas are native varieties and very different from the sort of bananas we're used to. Now, these don't look edible at all, but this is a local variety of mandarin. Despite the fact it's green, I'm told, this is sweet and edible. Superb. A little bit more tangy, a bit like a lime flavour to it, but very sweet, very edible. What else? Peanuts, of course, here are everywhere. Now, these are the boiled peanuts, although a lot of the locals actually eat these raw as well. But boiled, magnificent. Gee, we should try some of these things back home in Australia. That's lovely. What else? I'm really enjoying this. Well, now there's a story behind this. This is an egg from one of their native fowls, if you like. Now, in Australia, we have things like brush turkeys and so on. Well, they have the equivalent animals here, and what they go and do is lay these in the volcanic ash, in the warm ash around the volcanoes, because remember, these birds don't incubate their eggs. They basically incubate themselves in warm soil. Well, I was half expecting to see a little chicken here. No chicken. Flavour. That's magnificent. I think I could survive here. The food is really more than just acceptable. It's delicious. Some of the ingenuity here is pretty impressive. Oh, and one last thing I didn't mention. I know you all know about mangoes, but they have local mangoes here at Rebelle, which are very large, as you can see. Much longer, and absolutely the best mangoes you've ever eaten in your life. That's just superb. And not stringy either. Now, do you like passion fruit? Well, Margaret Bates and Tess Mallows are just about to give you some of the best passion fruit recipes ever.
Although originally discovered by the Spanish conquistadors in Brazil, the name passion fruit has religious origins. It's named after the crucifixion, or the Passion, and if you look closely at the flower, you can see why. The leaf symbolises the spear, the 5 answers, the 5 wounds, the fleshy threads, the crown of thorns, and the white tint is for purity. Anyway, now that we've satisfied your hunger for history, let's satisfy my hunger for passion fruit recipes and join Tess Mallows in the kitchen. Hi, Tess.
Hi, Margaret. Been to church. How was it?
Yeah, church was great, but I was very keen to get back here and sample some of your food.
I hope you'll give me a hint.
Well, I must say, you're getting good results with your cabbages, Robinson.
Yeah, I think so, yes.
What's your secret? What do you use on them?
I use compost and a little bit of fertilizer.
So just ordinary fertiliser?
Ordinary fertilizer, yes. Yes.
And you're growing, obviously, a lot of the, Chinese?
Yeah, a lot of Chinese cabbage, bought from the Chinese themselves. I grow quite a lot of them around here. This is Trisam around here.
All right. And what a lot of the locals can learn from what you're doing here?
Yes, a lot of people come in every day. Some of them to buy a little bit of cabbage, some to see what I do, and then...
Okay. In fact, I noticed there's a bit of an audience over there at the moment.
Yes, I have the audience around here. A lot of these people, a lot of them are my students, sort of.
Right.
Sort of.
What's this crinkly leaf thing here?
This is Ibica, we call it, a local language.
Manihot or
Manihot, yes.
A type of hibiscus?
Type of hibiscus family.
What do you eat of that?
We eat the leaves. We eat the leaves.
Goodness, what, not just new shoots, any leaves at all?
Well, new shoot, but not the stem. Yes.
Now, also, you grow all your own stuff from seed?
I have to grow all my stuff from seed. Yeah. I have a nursery right up here.
Oh, fabulous.
We'll come to it in the next few minutes. Yeah, this is my, well, we call it a greenhouse. Maybe mine is the White House.
Well, you look like you're getting fairly good results in here.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, no, this is, I get a lot of these rubbish trays around the place, and then use them for my seed boxes.
So these are the old drawers out of the
old drawers from the filing cabinet. Yes, that's right. Yes, and I sort of use them, put them into use. I have these black trays here where I pricked up the seeds, and then from there I have to thin them out into these boxes. So it's a little bit of hard work, but it keeps me busy all the time.
So these turn over quickly.
Yeah, they turn over quickly. Yes.
Well, I've got to say, well done. I think you get a better bit of growth out of your cabbages than I ever get.
So I have to concentrate with the Chinese cabbage, this fast one, so that I have to keep my customers have something to eat.
You're doing a good job. Well done.
Coming up next, you'll see some of the most beautiful flowers from our country, Papua New Guinea. Hello.
And this is the palm tree. It has the botanic name of Areca catechu. And these are the nuts. Thank you, Oblis. There you are. That is the piece that they then add the mustard and the lime to and chew and turn the teeth black and the mouth red and make everybody happy. Remember, it isn't a nut at all. Have you ever wondered what the difference between a backyard in
Papua New Guinea, in this case in Lae, and one in Australia was? Well, for a start, there's a lot of plants that really only grow in the very warm areas. This is an alamander, and that's a coral vine, but the differences are far more profound than just a few climates. How different is it gardening in Papua New Guinea, Liz?
Well, it's probably different, but it's not difficult in that everything you stick in the ground grows. Everyone has a green thumb here. I don't think it's possible not to be able to grow things from cuttings. In fact, when we throw our cuttings over the fence, they grow as well as here. So
how long does it take to grow things?
Well, this garden is 10 years old, but it's been pruned back severely many times during that 10 years. Really, you are very well rewarded within 6 to 12 months.
Good.
So for a lot of people who are just here for a short contract,
yeah.
They see their efforts rewarded very quickly, yes.
How old, for instance, would that yellow passion fruit vine be?
Well, it's less than a year old since it was planted.
That is just... And how good's the fruit?
It's lovely, sweet yellow fruit, and it's abundant in the quantity that it produces. They're lovely. Mm.
Obviously, one of the spectacular plants that is really tough around Lae are the Musayendas.
Yes, we're grateful to have those been introduced in the last few years. I've got, I think, four different colours.
You've got light pink, mid-pink, red.
A white, a creamy white one.
Right.
And there's a small leaf one too, that I think it grows wild here actually, in Kassam Pass.
I notice you have a number of plants that we would have great difficulty growing in most areas of Australia, Liz.
Yes, well, I've saved my pride and joy for you here.
Oh, isn't that superb?
That's the highlight of my garden, the jade vine and the flame of the forest.
They are spectacular things. Both of these, of course, climbers that run up trees and that.
Yes, I think it's important that you've got a big tree before you plant them, otherwise they take over. Unfortunately, this tree was a decent size when we planted it and was able to support the creeper. Yeah.
What are some of your other tropical gems?
Well, I love the exotics, the heliconias and the gingers, and I've got quite a collection of those. For good all-year colour, the Caesalpinia, dwarf poinciana, there are 3 colours of those.
They're lovely, aren't they?
Very colourful all year round.
So they grow here, what, about 8 to 10 feet or something at best?
Yes, you really need to be cutting them back all the time, otherwise they take off and get straggly.
Mm. Oh, obviously the bougainvilleas are just marvellous here.
Yes, they prefer it to be a little bit drier, and they're at their best when we have a few weeks without rain, but they provide all year colour in the garden.
There's a few curios. I notice you're actually growing a few roses.
Oh, yes. They're not spectacular, but it's nice to have a little tiny rose to put in a specimen vase occasionally.
And you even managed to keep a few gerberas alive.
Yes, yeah, gerberas seem to quite like it here.
Goodness, no, I wouldn't have thought that. That's one that's really stumped me. I would have thought, according to everything right and proper, they wouldn't grow.
No.
Say the lifestyle isn't all that bad here in PNG.
Oh, it's hell in the tropics.
Are you satisfied with the way the garden is now?
Yes, I am. I still get an enormous lot of pleasure out of it. There's probably not very many new tropical shrubs that are available here anyway. I've just about got the lot.
Well, the results are, I must say, they're very, very good. But do you have a local nursery you can lob down to, whatever, or? There
is a nursery at the Botanical Gardens that some things are available from, but probably the most satisfying thing about establishing this garden was the fact that I propagated almost everything myself.
Goodness, because you really haven't got much choice.
No, so just from friends, and now I get a lot of pleasure out of sharing them with people because people share their cuttings and seeds with me.
Oh, it's a good result.
Thank you.
One of the most magnificent of all of the Papua New Guinea parrots is also one of the most peculiar. And this is one of them up here in this tree behind me. Now, that exquisite red and blue creature is not the male of the species at all. This is a female Eclectus parrot.
Beautiful creature. That's her little nesting hole in the dead tree. Now, this species also occurs in Australia as well as Papua New Guinea, but it's one where the sexes are reversed. Blue, red and beautiful for the girl, and the boy looks like this. This species also occurs in Australia, again, as you might expect, in the tropical north, right on the Cape York Peninsula, in the rainforests there. So that's basically its range around the New Guinea area and the top of Australia, and it's one of the few parrots where the sexes are actually reversed, where the boy is the plain one. Do you feel embarrassed about it at all?
After the break, you'll see the New Guinea mudmen.
Superb buttressed roots, and this particular one is growing right next to the markets in Rabaul in Papua New Guinea. What a stunning tree.
This was a sight to put the fear of the devil into the local villagers. These are the mudmen. The tribe are the Komunive. And the legend goes that they were getting, well, they were losing in the wars with the other local tribes. And after being almost massacred, a number of the men fell into a muddy creek. They came out the next morning, and when they came out, the other villagers thought they were the ghosts of the men they'd killed, and they fled in fear. Using what they learnt from this lesson, they developed the muddy smearing all over the bodies and the masks. And with this as a basic attack mode, they ruled the area. Today is a very sad day for the Komunive, the tribe of mudmen. Here they have just buried Gani Suvo, a great leader and the last of the original mudmen. Fortunately, though, the legend of the mudmen will carry on because the villagers still celebrate it for the tourists. In the town of Lae in Papua New Guinea, the trees, of course, as you might expect, are festooned with all sorts of epiphytic plants, that is, plants which hang on the side of a tree but don't actually do any damage to the tree. One of the curious ones is this Grammatophyllum orchid above my head. It has brownish, bristly roots that capture any of the leaves and other bits of material that fall from the tree, so it's able to survive and grow quite well. Now, you might think this particular one here is rather large, but in fact, elsewhere there's one that's quite a deal larger than that. And this is it here. That gigantic plant there, and that is one plant in the top of that dead tree, is this same orchid, Grammatophyllum papuanum. From top to bottom, it's something like about 7 or 8 feet, in other words, 2.5 metres, and that is one individual plant. The orchid species itself is regarded as the world's largest species of orchid, and for all I know, that's the largest individual plant in the world. That is absolutely huge. I could stand in that and you probably wouldn't see me if I was standing up.
As well as having the world's largest orchid, Papua New Guinea also has some of the smallest. This particular one here is a tiny species of bulbophyllum, just a fraction the size of a fingernail.
These mountain areas in Papua New Guinea abound with holes in the ground. Now, in this case here, we've got a hole in the peat moss, and you'll notice a poor little baby wallaby has fallen in there and obviously been unable to get out, so he's starved to death down there. He's presumably one of the tiny little wallabies you get through these upland areas. By the way, there's also tree kangaroos and so on around here. Elsewhere, though, in the limestone, there are gigantic holes where entire rivers flow along and disappear, who knows where, into the bowels of the earth. After the break, you'll meet our celebrity gardener. In fact, he was born in Papua New Guinea, in Wau. His name? John Laws. And I think that one could argue they are possibly the single most spectacular group of animals to be found anywhere on Earth. Although I said they're confined mostly to New Guinea, in fact, there is the odd species also in Australia, and we've previously showed you the Victoria's riflebird with that stunning display. That is possibly the most spectacular of the Australian members of this group. But there are many more species of birds of paradise, all of them truly bizarre and spectacular. The Ragiana bird of paradise not only has some of the most extravagant plumes of any bird on Earth, it also has one of the most intricate dance sequences. The adult males display together in specially chosen trees. These display areas are called leks, and the birds have been recorded as using the same tree for well over 25 years. Generation after generation of young males come to the lek to look and learn the ways to win females. Young males take 5 or 6 years to acquire adult plumage. The female bird of paradise is quite drab by comparison with the male. As she shows interest, the somewhat violent mating sequence begins. Many of the birds of paradise have iridescent feathers which change colour as the incident light and angle of viewing change. This is the ribbon-tailed bird of paradise, and the iridescent green colour on the head and throat is an illusion. The feathers are actually black with tiny grooves on them. The grooves diffract light, creating the colours. When it comes to iridescent colours, the magnificent bird of paradise has few peers. But just to make sure that all the girls notice his green chest and tummy, he strips the leaves from his display bush to maximise the light striking his plumes. Laws's six-wired bird of paradise has 6 long, wire-like, racket-tipped head plumes. Again, the iridescent golden colours on the chest are an optical illusion. When displaying, the male completely changes his shape to resemble an open umbrella, or if you like, a ballerina.
This is the superb bird of paradise. It also has iridescent colours on a chest shield, but in this case it can be erected to resemble a second pair of wings.
This is one of the most extraordinary experiences of my life. Just over my head is the Princess Stephanie, bird of paradise. It frequents cleared areas, the edge of the rainforest, and particularly on top of Mount Gahavasuka here. It's relatively easily seen, but in general these birds of paradise are not at all easy to find in most areas of New Guinea. But those extraordinary colours, that wonderful green, the red line under that, and those impossibly long tail feathers, combined with their incredible behaviour and song, these really are amongst the most bizarre and spectacular animals on the face of the globe.
But this is possibly the most spectacular of all of the species of birds of paradise. This is the bluebird of paradise. It displays upside down, showing its exquisite blue plumes with the black and red spot. But it's this bird's song which is one of the strangest sounds emitted by any animal on Earth. This is not a simulated sound, this is the real one. And imagine for a moment that you're a female bluebird of paradise and all of this is for you. Coming up next, the winner of Ansett Australia's My Pets a Genius.